You are at a shawarma spot on Sunset Boulevard and you are doing the math on whether the wrap is happening today. Not whether you want it, but whether you can. It is $13. You make $41,000 a year, which means you earn more than a significant portion of full-time American workers. The math is still tight. Now picture someone else. Different city, same age, same hours in the workday, who booked a last-minute flight to Milan last Wednesday because she felt like it, did not think about the price once, did not do any math at all. These two people are not living different versions of the same life. They are living completely different lives, and the gap between them is not luck. It is not some enormous salary difference. It is a specific, measurable threshold. Researchers actually have a name for it. And today, from the outside of your financial system, I am going to show you exactly where that threshold sits, what it costs to cross it, and why most of you are misreading your own position on the ladder so badly it is actively costing you years of your life. Before we talk about what different paychecks actually buy, let us establish where everyone is standing. Because most Americans dramatically misread their position on the income ladder. According to the Social Security Administration, the average salary in the United States right now is $66,622. The Bureau of Labor Statistics puts the median full-time worker at $61,984 per year. That is the midpoint. Half of working Americans earn less than that number. Half earn more. The difference between those two figures matters. The average is pulled upward by outliers, the billionaires, the hedge fund managers, the people in this conversation who are not you. The median is what the typical worker actually earns. And the typical worker earns $61,984. Now, only 12.1% of Americans fall in the $75,000 to $99,999 range. An additional 17% land between $100,000 and $149,000. And the top 10% of earners in this country, the ones your brain pictures when you imagine a comfortable American life, earn $167,639 or more per year. And here is the number that should reframe everything you think you know about American income. That $66,622 national average is not one number. It is 50 different numbers wearing the same name. California's average is $76,960. Mississippi's is $47,569. Massachusetts sits at $80,330. The same salary in two different states is not the same salary. It is not even close. A $70,000 paycheck in Boston and a $70,000 paycheck in rural Arkansas are two completely different financial realities. Different purchasing power, different cost of housing, different everything. So the question we are really asking today is not what does your salary say on paper. It is one question across every income level. At what point does money start working for you instead of the other way around? Let us find out. We will follow someone through every step. Meet Jake. He is 23. He moved to Los Angeles straight out of college, landed an entry-level role in marketing at a mid-size agency. He earns $41,000 a year. After federal taxes, California state taxes, which are among the highest in the country. And FICA, Jake takes home approximately $2,680 a month. That is it. That is the entire board. Rent first, because in LA, rent always comes first. A room in a shared apartment in Koreatown, not a one-bedroom, a room with two roommates he found on the internet, runs $1,250 a month. There goes $1,250. Jake has not bought a single thing to eat yet. Utilities, his share, $85. Jake needs a car. Los Angeles is not a city. It is a collection of freeways with delusions of grandeur, and the bus does not go where the jobs are. Car payment on something used with 90,000 miles, $295. Insurance and gas, $310. Groceries at the most conservative level, $360. Phone and internet, because you cannot exist professionally without them, $115. Health insurance, employee share, $130. A small credit card balance from the move itself, $170 minimum payment. Total monthly obligations, $2,715. Monthly take-home, $2,680. Jake is underwater by $35 a month before he has spent $1 on anything that resembles a life. Before a concert, before a date, before his parking ticket from Tuesday, before his car registration comes due, before anything anywhere goes wrong. This is not bad budgeting, this is the mathematics of being 23 in Los Angeles on an entry-level salary. The numbers refuse to cooperate regardless of how disciplined Jake is. And I want you to understand what this actually feels like, because I think the people who have left this phase forget it too quickly and too conveniently. It feels like checking your bank balance before you confirm plans, not after. It feels like a specific low-grade nausea every time your phone buzzes with a notification from your banking app. It feels like calculating, in the parking lot before you walk in, exactly how much you can spend at the grocery store and still make rent. And then putting the slightly nicer bread back on the shelf because it is $2.50 more than the other one. And it is always $2.50. And here is the part that should make you genuinely angry. The system has a very deliberate relationship with Jake at this income level. Overdraft fees are charged specifically to people who cannot hold a minimum balance. Payday lenders charge 300% APR to people who cannot survive 2 weeks between paychecks. A low credit score, which financial precarity reliably produces, raises his car insurance premium, his security deposit, his cost of borrowing everything. The less margin Jake has, the more expensive every single thing becomes. This is not a design flaw, this is the business model for this income tier, and Jake is their most reliable customer. 3 years pass. Jake gets promoted twice. He is sharper, faster, harder to replace. He is now a marketing manager at a larger firm in Santa Monica, earning $63,000 a year. His monthly take-home, after California does what California does, climbs to approximately $4,010. The budget can now technically balance. He exhales for the first time since moving here. Except rent has crept up because he finally moved into his own studio apartment. $1,600. Car payment on something slightly more reliable, $330. Insurance and gas, because LA traffic has not improved, and neither has the price of gasoline, $320. Groceries, upgraded from bare survival, $410. Health insurance, $145. Phone and internet, $125. That credit card, now being properly paid down, $200. And finally, an actual life. A gym, dinner out twice a month, one streaming service he actually watches, $230. Total, $3,360. Surplus, $650. If Jake is disciplined, and after 3 years of running a deficit, the discipline is carved into him, $300 of that goes into his 401k to capture the employer match. That leaves $350 a month for savings. At $350 a month, a 3-month emergency fund of about $10,000 takes over 2 years to build, assuming nothing goes wrong for 24 consecutive months in Los Angeles, which it will not. Here is what financial fragility actually feels like at $63,000 in a high-cost city. And I want to be precise about this because it is different from the quiet desperation of $41,000. It feels like finally being able to breathe. And then the landlord sends a lease renewal with a $180 rent increase, and the breathing stops. It feels like telling yourself you have turned a corner while knowing that one car problem, one medical situation, one reduction in hours collapses everything you spent 2 years carefully constructing. You have upgraded from drowning to treading water, and everyone around you is congratulating you on how well you are swimming. That rent increase costs $2,160 a year. Jake's entire savings capacity is $4,200 a year. The landlord just consumed half of it with a single letter. The credit card came out again in November when the car needed new tires. The bank charged 24% APR. The income went up. The trap simply recalibrated. Jake grinds, changes companies, negotiates properly for the first time because he finally knows what he is worth. He is 30 now. Senior marketing manager at a tech company in Culver City. $108,000 a year. 6 figures. The milestone his parents talked about when he was in high school. Take home in California, approximately $6,420 a month. Let us pause here because this number deserves examination. To go from $63,000 to $108,000, a $45,000 gross increase, Jake's monthly take-home rose by approximately $2,410. A $45,000 raise, after the federal government, California, and FICA finished with it, became $2,410 a month. File that away. The budget. A one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, Mar Vista, not Venice, something livable, $2,100. Utilities, $135. Car payment on something made in this decade, $460. Insurance and gas, $345. Good groceries, the kind where he does not mentally calculate every item, $475. Phone and internet, $135. Health insurance, $160. Student loans on a standard repayment plan, $310. And a real-life, gym, regular dinners, a long weekend in San Francisco twice a year, $580. Total, $4,700. Remaining, $1,720 a month. Put 10% into the 401k, $900 a month, and Jake has $820 left. A 6-month emergency fund gets built in well under a year. A financial shock gets absorbed without the credit card coming out. He can say no to things without it being a crisis. Here is what $108,000 in Los Angeles actually unlocks, and it is more specific than people expect. It is the first time Jake wakes up on a Monday morning and does not immediately think about money. That sounds unremarkable until you understand he has not experienced it once in 7 years of living here. The absence of financial dread is itself a form of wealth. It does not have a line item. It does not show up in salary negotiation conversations. But it is the actual thing that almost everything else is in service of. And most Americans never experience it. But, and this is where the story complicates, Jake is not rich. Not remotely. The federal 401k contribution limit is $23,500 per year. Maxing it would cost $1,958 a month. Jake's entire post-expenses surplus is $1,720. He cannot max retirement savings and save anything else simultaneously. Something always has to yield. And that $2,100 rent is actually conservative for his neighborhood. Average rent for a one-bedroom in Los Angeles runs closer to $2,600. At $2,600, the surplus collapses, and we are back to treading water in a nicer apartment with a better view and the same thin margin. $108,000 in Los Angeles is like being a strong swimmer in a current. You are no longer drowning. You can make real forward progress. But you are still swimming and the current is still running. Jake lands a director role at a streaming company. He is 35. $158,000 a year. Take home in California, roughly $8,920 a month. Now watch the math stop being cruel for once. Mortgage on a condo in Glendale, he finally bought something, $2,700. Utilities, $165. Car, comfortable but not performative, $530. Insurance and gas, $345. Good groceries, the ones where the produce looks like produce, $505. Phone and internet, $145. Health insurance, $170. Student loans, finally in their final year, $310. Real discretionary spending, actual vacations, real dinners, being a complete adult in a city that rewards it, $1,050. Total, $5,920. Remaining, $3,000 a month. Jake can now max his 401k, fund a Roth IRA, still have money left to put into a taxable brokerage account, build a 6-month emergency fund in under 5 months. He can say yes to things. The question in his head shifts, and I want you to register how significant this is. From can I afford this to do, I actually want this. That is not a subtle difference. That is the entire game. That is what every income milestone below this one was pointing toward the whole time. Here is the data that grounds all of this. The BLS and BEA ran joint research on savings rates by income quintile. Their finding, personal savings are functionally negative for the bottom three income quintiles. Roughly 60% of American households spend more than they earn when debt is properly accounted for. Real compounding wealth-building savings do not begin in earnest until somewhere between $130,000 and $160,000 in household income, adjusted for the cost of where you actually live. Think of it this way. At $41,000, every dollar Jake earns enters his account and something is immediately waiting for it. Rent, insurance, a minimum payment. The money exists for days, sometimes hours before it is already allocated. There is no surplus. At $158,000, for the first time, some dollars arrive with nothing immediately claiming them. Those are the dollars that multiply. That is compounding. That is the entire trick, and you cannot access it until you have margin. And you cannot have margin until fixed costs stop consuming everything. And in a high-cost city, fixed costs stop consuming everything right around here. A 35-year-old who maxes their retirement accounts and invests another $900 a month into a basic index fund, consistent, automated, boring, is looking at roughly $1.9 million by age 65. Not because they are exceptional, because they had enough margin to let time do the arithmetic, and they did not allow lifestyle expansion to eat the surplus before the automation locked in. Here is the part of this that stopped me when I first read the Goldman Sachs research. I want you to hear it clearly. They surveyed Americans on paycheck to paycheck, living across every income bracket. And what they found was not what anyone expected. Among households earning $200,000 to $300,000, just 16% live paycheck to paycheck. That is the most financially stable bracket in the entire survey. The sweet spot. Then you look at $300,000 to $500,000. The rate jumps back to 41%, and above $500,000, 40%. Statistically identical to households earning under $50,000. Let that land. People earning $500,000 a year and people earning $45,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck at essentially the same rate. The two ends of the American income spectrum, mirror images of each other in the one metric that actually measures financial stress. This is not a story about income. This is a story about lifestyle inflation, the invisible, silent, perfectly efficient force that expands to consume every dollar you earn, regardless of how many dollars that is. At $45,000, you spend everything because the arithmetic demands it. At $500,000, you spend everything because your brain has quietly reclassified a $5,500 monthly car payment, a $12,000 mortgage, $46,000 per year per child in private school, and a vacation property with $4,000 a month in carrying costs as simply the baseline. What people at your level do, earning $500,000 a year and ending the month empty, is the financial equivalent of running a marathon and finishing exactly where you started. Except you are exhausted, your credit cards are warm, and your second property just failed its inspection. The $200,000 to $300,000 sweet spot exists for one specific reason. Income has briefly outrun the lifestyle arms race. There is margin before the spending expectations of that income bracket have had time to fully colonize the lifestyle. It is a window, and it closes faster than almost anyone anticipates. A Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia study found that when someone in a neighborhood wins a significant lottery prize, the bankruptcy rates of their neighbors go up. Visible wealth triggers visible spending. More money does not automatically create more security. It creates a higher floor of expenditure required to feel normal. At $250,000, Jake's monthly take-home in California is approximately $13,600. The mathematics is now genuinely working for him. Mortgage on a proper home in a neighborhood he actually chose, $3,200. A car that does not require an explanation, $700. Premium groceries, $575. Real discretionary spending, international travel, proper restaurants, some actual luxury, $2,200. Charitable giving, because at this income there is no defensible excuse not to, $500. Total, $7,175. Remaining, over $6,400 every single month. Max the 401k, fund the backdoor Roth, contribute to a 529 for the kids. Put the rest in a taxable brokerage. Invested at 8% average annual returns, that is over $7.8 million in 30 years. No stock picking, no crypto, no scheme, just time, margin, and the discipline not to spend the surplus before the compounding begins. But the Goldman data does not care about intentions. 40% of households at this income level still live paycheck to paycheck. Because private school plus a boat plus 2 luxury leases plus we only fly business now is also remarkably a substantial amount of money. The trap did not disappear. It got a better address, a wine cellar, and became significantly harder to see from inside it. One final thing, because it belongs in this conversation, and almost nobody includes it. Killingsworth and Kahneman, two researchers who disagreed publicly about this for years, published a joint paper in 2023 combining their datasets. For roughly 80% of people, well-being continues rising with income at every level they studied. No ceiling, more money, more life satisfaction, all the way up. But for the unhappiest 20%, people carrying serious depression, grief, illness, broken relationships, happiness stops responding to income at around $100,000 to $110,000. Beyond that, more money does not reach what is actually wrong. You cannot lifestyle creep your way out of a mental health crisis. You cannot buy your way out of a marriage that has already ended emotionally. The miseries that persist at $500,000 are not the kind a larger paycheck resolves. And then there is this. Stanford research tracking over 1 billion tax records found that the wealthiest 1% of men live 14.6 years longer than the poorest 1%. At age 40, a wealthy man can statistically expect to reach 87. A poor man, 72. That is not a quality of life difference. That is a completely different quantity of life. Financial stress is a public health crisis that America has normalized so completely it barely registers as one anymore. So here is what all of it adds up to. The threshold, the real one, based on actual savings data, not on what feels inspiring to say, sits somewhere between $130,000 and $160,000 in household income in a high-cost city like Los Angeles. In a mid-cost state, closer to $100,000. Below that, the system runs you. Fixed costs consume the margin never accumulates, and you are permanently one piece of bad luck from a full reset. Above it, you start running the system. The surplus compounds. The compounding builds something, and that something, over time, starts to resemble actual freedom. But the Goldman Sachs curve tells us the most important truth in this entire conversation. The threshold is a doorway, not a destination. Walking through it does not automatically make you financially secure. What makes you financially secure is building your fixed costs below your income and holding that line while the difference accumulates in boring index funds for 20 or 30 years. The paycheck is not the variable, the gap is. And the gap is always a choice, except at the income tiers, where the mathematics simply refuses to cooperate no matter how disciplined you are. And that is the part the system never tells you directly. Below a certain income in America, the game is structurally stacked. The system does not merely ignore people with no margin. It profits from them. Your deficit at that income level is someone else's business model. Above it, the only thing working against you is you. Here is what I want you to do before you close this. Open your bank account right now, not tomorrow, right now. Add up every fixed cost, rent or mortgage, car payment, insurance, every loan, every subscription that leaves your account whether you think about it or not. Then look at your take-home. The gap between those two numbers is the only financial figure that actually matters. The salary is scenery. The title is scenery. The gap is the game. If that number made you uncomfortable, good. Uncomfortable is where change begins. If it surprised you in a good direction, you are already further ahead than you think you are. Jake started out doing the math on a shawarma in a parking lot on Sunset Boulevard. The question is not whether you can afford the wrap today. The question is what structure you are going to build so that one day the question never occurs to you at all. If this changed how you think about your money, subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from.